Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and we have a dual guest. We have a fan and someone who's a star right now in his own way. Warren, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me back. And I have to say, I really enjoyed our last conversation. And so that led me to look forward to this one.
Thank you, sir. All right, Warren Zane, writer of Deliver Me from Nowhere, a little book you may have heard of that's getting just the slightest amount of press. But before I talk you the movie, I want to talk to you as the fan. Last time we talked, you had said you had a couple of shows you were planning to attend. So did you get to go see Bruce in this latest tour?
I did. I went to Norway, Sweden, and I did one show in Italy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So thoughts?
I had the good fortune in those cases. In Italy, it was Milan and it was outdoor show. And the biggest part for me was going all the way to the back. I think the numbers were around 100,000. And
Wow.
so when you went to the back, since this wasn't a stadium situation with tiered seating, it's just flat and it rolls out. And that means that if you're in the last seat, that's a tough last seat. And
Yeah.
when we went all the way back, no surprise to anyone, but it was the best place to be. The people there, everybody was singing. There were screens so they could see, but they weren't looking at the screens. They were in some other state. And that was such a Bruce experience. And just walking into this field, it was a long walk, and you're with the troops, and a couple people from the States came up to me. Mostly, I was just another member of this massive tribe. That one was really special. In the Scandinavian countries that I went to, I had the good fortune of really spending a lot of time with Jon Landau, and
Oh,
that's
nice.
yeah, that's happened a few times, and I'll tell you, I will never regret time spent with him. It is, and he's gotten to know my sons, and he's been so kind to them, but it's not his version of kind. I'll tell you a story about
Please.
my son Lucian is an actor, and he's done a few things out in the world, including he did a Steven Soderbergh limited series called Full Circle. So he's had some experience, but he doesn't wear that in a cumbersome way. I want to say that. So he
Yeah.
came to the set several times. And the first day he came, we went to catering, and there was Mark Maron. And so I got to introduce him to Mark Maron. And actually, it was Lucian who told me I should try to get on that podcast. And then we walk out, and he meets Jeremy Allen White. And Jeremy Allen White and my son Lucian shared a favorite acting teacher. They went to the same New York City high school. And then we go a few steps further, and it's Jeremy Strong, one of my son's heroes. He's got a framed picture of Jeremy Strong on his wall that has been there for 3 years. And then we keep going, and he gets to meet Bruce. And at the end of that day, I said, that was quite a day. You met some pretty remarkable people. And he looked at me and said, yeah, but Jon Landau is my favorite.
Wow.
Yeah, because John was in true John form. He's very funny. He's got a beautiful irreverence, but he knows when to turn that irreverence on and really take something in. As an art collector,
Yeah.
John has this experience with art, and he will say it himself. It could be his examples are could be Martha and the Vandellas heat wave. It could be the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Great art is great art. He
Mm.
doesn't think in terms of high art and low art. and his reverence is deep. And I think that reverence really underpins how he has helped Bruce in his career. There are times where Jon really just stands back, lets Bruce do it. There are other times where he's coming right into the mix and there you see them collaborating. But he knows at what time to be what. So
Yeah.
when I saw those shows in Sweden and Norway, getting to be with him and take it in to a degree through his eyes and through his point of view was amazing. It was amazing. And yeah, so great experiences. And of course, the shows, everyone felt like a baptism.
It did. I A couple questions about Jon. One, I do you one of the things like here I'm going to show you because of here let me turn off the blur.
Yeah,
There's yeah, the lyric of in this office, my office, we believe in Bruce Springsteen is a lyric that was in the advertising, the from preview. Why do you have any thoughts why that stuck with people so much and how much of Bruce's success has been amplified by having this as a partner?
yeah. Let me go with the first part, and then you'll
Okay.
remind me what the second part
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. Yes.
But that line in this office, my office, there's a long lead up to that moment. And we see Jon recognizing that born in the USA is emerging. He's got he's got Cover Me. He's got Born in the USA. He's got I'm on Fire. He sees as a manager and as a co-producer something remarkable is emerging. And he wants to follow that. And Bruce keeps he's Bruce is both feeling that and feeling his frustration in not being able to re-record the bedroom material that became Nebraska in a way that felt like he was lifting the material. He just each time, and this is you see this in the movie, but Jon doesn't get to that moment of bringing the hammer down with Al Teller from CBS until he goes through his own process of recognizing I have hit the point where my job is one thing, support Bruce's vision. My input on what way to go is no longer needed. Bruce has made his decision and I'm here to support it. The beauty of Jon is knowing again which moment is which. So when he gets to that definitive statement, it's got real power in the movie because we've seen him go from an ambivalence to an ironclad position. And that's Jon and his style, his way with language. Jon has a way with language that you can see Bruce is still laughing at it. It's
Wow.
it's funny. And to see Jeremy Strong take that on, it shocked everyone. Everyone who knew Jon and then saw Jeremy working on the set
Yeah.
walked away in a bit of shock. And the magic beyond that was to see Jeremy Allen White respond to Jeremy Strong's Jon Landau as Bruce responds to Jon,
Wow.
which is nothing they would have known.
Yeah.
They didn't have an experience of that. So it was just my belief is that if there was a God looking over the scene, the God wasn't Bruce Springsteen. That's
Yeah.
not the way he travels in the world. The God was Nebraska, Nebraska itself. And when it comes to Nebraska itself, my firm belief is that Bruce is with us watching it do things in the world. Powerful art is mysterious in that way. Bruce let that thing go into the world in 1982. And from that point on, it's like a kid who's moved out of the house. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're connected to you, but what they do out there is what they do out there. And Nebraska's been like that. If we could go back in time to
Mhm.
1982 and say to Bruce, hey, guess what? In 40 years or in some change, 20th Century Studios is going to be making a major movie about this record. He wouldn't have believed it, and he wouldn't have any reason to believe it.
Yeah.
And this is Nebraska, and it's looking one step back from the movie. What has happened with that album, the movie being a part of it,
Yes.
is the ultimate underdog story.
Yeah, it truly is. And I've told the story before, like when I became a Beach Boy fan back in 77, the first time I got Pet Sounds, I didn't get it. I was like, what is this? I don't understand. Where's my Beach Boy music? And now then it's my favorite. I might say it's my favorite album of all time, even
You,
above
you know
Bruce's
what?
stuff.
That's a great one because I just had a phone conversation with Bruce because I was
Mhm.
writing something for Mojo about the Nebraska box set. And I don't
Yeah,
do that much kind of journalism, not because I don't like it, it's just not it's not my sweet spot. But
yeah.
because it was in Electric Nebraska, I wanted to. But I was talking to Bruce about rare albums that seem to come from another time, but you can't exactly ascertain what time it is that they're coming from. And I said Van Morrison's Astral Weeks is one for me. And then Columbia's official release of the Basement tapes, that two record set, that
Mhm.
felt like that.
Yeah,
Nebraska feels like that. I'd actually put Pet Sounds in there.
yeah,
Like I know this is not this is from another place in time. I
yeah.
don't know where. And I'm going to keep listening to try to figure it out. And there's never closure on that. You can't figure it out. But the trying is a remarkable experience.
Yeah, it really is. Have you gotten to hear the box set already?
Yeah, so I got it so that I could write this piece
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, and I said the same thing to Bruce. We had an interesting conversation about it because my feeling was that Electric Nebraska was this failed effort to re-record the bedroom demos in a commercial studio context to make them release ready. And then I heard it, and what surprised me was that it wasn't Nebraska and it wasn't born in the USA. It doesn't sound like that. It's the tracks that got me the most are these three-piece combo tracks that's open all night is one of them. It sounds like this kind of rockabilly,
Yeah.
but it's not exactly rockabilly. Rockabilly as a form, there's a lot of interesting stuff there, but I feel like it's a fairly tight form. This
Hmm.
was rockabilly plus something else. But the takeaway for me was here's Bruce Springsteen, 81, 82, after the River Tour. He's coming into some real human trouble. Something, there's a fissure. And when human beings come into those moments where they can feel that something's coming apart, they tend to stop producing. If they're artists, the work tends to slow. And here's Bruce coming into this moment of hitting a kind of bottom when things fall apart, which is such an important moment for people who go through that and survive it. And
Yeah.
let's not forget, many don't.
Yes.
Those who come through it, they rebuild on the other side. So he's on the hard side of that. But work doesn't slow. In fact, he's got three wide avenues he could go down. Born in the USA, this thing we've called Electric Nebraska that I think needs a different name than the bedroom demos. And these are all like viable. And Bruce chooses the least likely of the three, the least commercial of the three, and just commits to it and takes everything else out of the frame and in a kind of that can wait. And then this major depressive episode that is the centerpiece in his memoir. I still, like I said to you at the beginning, have I tired of talking about Nebraska? No, because it's a
Yeah.
topic that replenishes itself. And there is so much to learn about who we can be as people when we hit those moments in our lives. And it could be divorce, it could be losing a parent. God forbid it's losing a kid, but this is life. This stuff
Yes.
happens. And when we go through it, to what degree can we keep going? And
Hmm.
what can we make of it? Because it's a time of losing things and things breaking, but it's a remarkable time of things also becoming.
Yes.
And so there's some kind of, this is where I go to the measure of, is there a lesson in here that I want my sons to know? And Nebraska keeps churning them out. And the other thing I got to say that I've been thinking a lot about lately is here's this quiet little album, and we're watching it have this very big life. And Bruce said this on the phone the other day is like, the moment I decided that it was the cassette tape, the bedroom demos that would be coming out, there was no intervention possible. I couldn't fix a lyric. I couldn't finish the lyrics. I
Yeah.
couldn't re-record the vocals. I couldn't tune any. There was no intervention possible. Think about today. Think about the rise of plastic surgery. Think
Yes.
about the degree to which Photoshop and like filters are used. Think about the way people present themselves in online dating. We have such capacity to fix things, to make them better than they actually are. It's an epidemic of fixing. And in music, once we went digital and we could see everything as waveforms, music became so much more fixable. And here we are, all standing around this campfire listening to Nebraska, the great imperfect work of art. That is inspiring to me. And it's a message that goes way beyond music.
Yeah, I love that. It just happened yesterday. I took a picture of the little poster and I this is my podcast studio is also our guest bedroom. So I went to AI and I said, "Hey, can you clean up the background?" And it did. It cleaned out everything. And so it's this looks like behind me is a bed made perfectly and everything. And I was like, that's a little scary, but it's also not real.
Yeah.
And yes, absolutely.
And how
Yeah.
many times with human beings,
Yeah,
how many times is the thing we love about them the flaw?
absolutely.
It,
It's
yeah, but this is the same in art. Could be sculpture, could be a painting, could be a piece of music, it could
yeah,
be a human being. The problem is that you need to give it a beat, absorb that flaw as beauty. You can't do it instantaneously. And
yes.
we are in a culture of immediacy. So people prepare for that immediacy rather than the quiet between two people where they can take that moment to begin to see a person's flaw as something beautiful. And I see it with, not to get into territory that's well covered by many people, but in the age of smartphones, there are just fewer and fewer of those moments where people pause to take in another's imperfections as something that resonates at a higher level than that which has been perfected.
Back in 2012, my wife and I went on a vacation. The first one we had gone just us in years. We had no other couple. We didn't have the boy. and we drove up to Cleveland for a Springsteen show. And so we went through all kinds of stops. And we were in the car driving, and we realized that we still liked each other and we still didn't run out of things to talk about. And we also were comfortable with silence of just
Mm,
listening to a song on the radio. And so we now try to at least once or twice a year do a road trip, my wife and I, for that very reason. You're not looking at your phone, you're not watching TV, you're just in the car
yeah.
enjoying each other's company.
Yeah. It's funny that the car has become that place.
Yes.
I definitely find it with my sons. If we're going to have the talk we got to have, I'm probably going to be behind the wheel.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. All right, so I'm going to ask you a little bit. When did you shop the book around for it to be a movie? Did they come to you? And how much were you involved with picking a producer?
Yeah, the whole thing, Bruce's statement about Nebraska, it was
Yeah,
an accident start to finish. You can't exactly say that about the movie,
yeah,
but it did come up from behind.
okay.
And it started when I got an email from a producer named Eric Robinson. And I get that email and it says, Dear Dr. Zanes. And nobody calls me doctor. And I wrote an essay about the whole process because a lot of people, when they think about a Hollywood project, they imagine a boardroom and a lot of people with a distinct and focused plan. And it did not go down like that. Eric reached out. I said, You can option my book, but if all you've got is Warren Zanes, you have nothing. You need Bruce Springsteen's life rights and you need music clearance. And if Bruce wanted to make a movie, he would have done it by now.
Yeah,
But here's my Venmo if you'd like to send me some money.
sure. Hey, okay.
Yeah. Like I got two kids in college. Like
Yes.
I'm down. I'm a great charity if you're looking for one. Uh, but then Eric was persistent, and Eric and his partner, Ellen Goldsmith Vane, kept at it. And ultimately, to the point where they asked if I would approach Bruce and John. And I said no, that I wouldn't, because I've already been on the receiving end of enough generosity. And if I ask for something more, make no mistake, it's going to be for me.
Yeah,
You know, and me alone, and probably.
right. Yeah,
And I said there is one way in which I could approach them, and that's if you had someone, whether it's producer, director, actor, someone they know and respect who's involved. Then that's a piece of news that I could, as messenger, bring to them. And by chance, Ellen had been copied on an email that wasn't meant to go to her that had Scott Cooper's email. She sends Scott an email that said, Are you familiar with Bruce Springsteen's recording Nebraska? And Scott writes back, That is absolutely one of my favorite recordings. And then they set up a dinner for me and Scott Cooper. The next day, Scott and I kind of wrote up a draft, a one-page description of what a Nebraska movie could be. And I sent it to Bruce, and John got back in 30 seconds and said, It sounds interesting, but with Bruce copied here, I leave it to him to respond. And there was no response. And some time passed, but this was right in that period where Bruce was dealing with the peptic ulcer.
okay.
And so nobody's going to badger him for a response.
Sure.
He was postponing dates. There was a lot going on in Bruce world. And then it was September 23, and I was driving down to Nashville to do my PBS special. which was focused on Nebraska. It included Emmylou Harris and Noah Kahn, Lucinda Williams, Emmylou Harris, the Lumineers, Eric Church. It was a big deal for me.
I loved that special, by the way, Warren. I
And
agree. It was just, it was amazing.
it was a wild thing to do. I felt like I was at a career peak. It was a show you cannot rehearse. So I'm
Right.
going there and I got 150 people in front of me and a lot of cameras, and I'm doing something I haven't done before. And you just are walking on the edge of the cliff. But with that cast of musicians, I felt like it would take some doing to fuck this up.
Yes.
But I'm driving down there. I got my dog Toby in the back. I'm driving my Subaru out back, and a call comes up that says no caller ID, and it's Bruce. And Bruce is calling because he wants to know which artists are doing which songs at this PBS taping. Which,
Nice.
yeah, totally. That's the Bruce style.
Yeah.
Like it's a message of I see you, I'm interested. In the end, please thank everybody. I wish I was there. I can't be, but thank them. And I was able to go into rehearsals and say that to people. And it was like, it was a little bit of gold dust on
Yes.
the scene. But at the end of that call with Bruce, I did something that I don't typically do because the line of people asking for favors from Bruce Springsteen is one of the longer lines in existence.
Yes.
But at the end of the call, I said, "Hey, did you get a chance to read that one-page description? I wouldn't bother you if I didn't think there was something to this." Scott Cooper's a great director. And Bruce said, "When did you send that?" And I gave him the date, and he was like, "Let me look at it." Came at a busy time.
Yeah.
I didn't fully take it in.
Yeah.
Cool. See you later. Bye. Good luck. Thank you. Click.
Yeah.
A couple minutes later, I get a text from Bruce and it says, "I'm into this."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my biggest day, my career peak, just got another peak.
Yeah.
And I wrote back and I said, if you haven't seen Scott Cooper's Crazy Heart or Out of the Furnace or Hostiles, go just take a look at them. That's a range of his movies, and Bruce knew them all. And I said, I'd love to introduce you to Scott. And he just said, let's do it as soon as we can. And just weeks later, Scott and I were driving in my Subaru down to the Jersey Shore to sit for 3 hours with Bruce and Jon so that I could introduce Bruce and Jon to Scott. 90 minutes was talking about movies. 90 minutes was talking about what a Bruce Springsteen movie focused on Nebraska could be. And at the end of that meeting, and I could see Jon's surprise, Bruce said, I want to do this.
Wow.
No script, one meeting with the director, a guy who could have made movies decades before if he wanted to, says to us that he wants to do it. And Jon looks a little taken aback. And Scott and I got in a Subaru to drive back to Montclair, and that Subaru felt like it had wings.
Sure. Can we
No,
believe this?
yeah, there are bad meetings, there are good meetings, and then there are euphoric meetings.
Yeah.
And it was like off and running from there. And Scott is a very hard worker. And for the next like couple months, Scott and I were talking every day. He was writing, he was sending me stuff, and really was very kind in making space for me in his creative process. And it was his, but we talked a lot. And after a couple months, it was like, He had a script, and I said, if I were you, I would feel ready to go to Bruce and Jon. Meeting gets set up. Scott and I go to Colts Neck. We sit in a room with Bruce and Jon. Scott reads an entire script, doing all the characters, dramatic reading. It's the afternoon, and the sun starts to go down as he's reading, and nobody turns on lights. Scott's got just enough light to read. There are no interruptions except if Patty calls. And she called once for Bruce. He took the call, came back, reading continued, beginning to end. That's a long,
That is a long, yeah.
yeah. It was one of the most amazing experiences. This is Scott's second time meeting Bruce. And I
Wow.
get to watch Bruce hearing someone else be Bruce, read Bruce's lines. I get to see Bruce taking it in. I get to see Scott doing it. That was a remarkable room to be in. And from that point forward, it was really about seeing a relationship build between, in particular, Scott and Bruce.
Yeah.
And from that day, the cast got much larger. And but those two sessions are those are in my treasure chest of
I imagine.
experiences.
Yeah. I was curious. One of the things that you said earlier is Jeremy Strong talking about Jon Landau. I'm sure there has already been a lot of nice reviews about how much Jeremy Allen White feels like Bruce, but do you think people who know John are going to go, wow, I can't believe how well this portrayed him on film? Do you think
Uh,
that's going to be the surprise?
Absolutely. I've already seen it. I've had the opportunity to see several people who know John really well go, whoa. One of them was Jimmy Iovine is a character in the
Okay.
story. John plays John plays Born in the USA, the song, Jimmy. And Jimmy hears it, and this is what he said was, I don't care what the other songs on the album are. If you got this song, the record's a hit.
Wow.
This is a leap forward. And so there's this moment where Jeremy Strong as Jon Landau is talking to Jimmy Iovine. It's not someone playing Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's the real Jimmy. And Jimmy's got this line. John's trying to explain that Bruce doesn't want to work on what Jimmy heard. He
Yeah.
wants to work on these bedroom demos, the more acoustic stuff. And Jimmy goes, a fucking folk album? Yeah. Uh, and in that moment you're seeing Jon Landau and Jimmy Iovine, and at the end of it, Jimmy was like, I thought I was talking to Jon Landau.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, it was both moving and, as is anything with Jimmy Iovine, hysterical.
Yeah.
These Jon Landau, Jimmy Iovine, Bruce Springsteen, there's many things to say about these people, but among them, you have to say they're really fucking funny.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's full Jimmy on the phone.
Yeah. I was at the Born to Run symposium a month or so ago, and Bruce told the story right to Jimmy at after Born to Run, like that's where you peaked, which is just hilarious because of everyone thing that's happened since that with Jimmy. Any Easter eggs in the film that only hardcore fans might catch?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but there was so much care taken. I
Yeah.
was describing this to somebody yesterday. Like I was one of the first people I talked to was Dave Gulick, who is the props master on the
Okay.
And he's working to get TAC 144s lined up to make sure the right guitar is in the room, to make sure that the guitar, is it going to an amp or is it going direct? All this stuff. I'm talking to him trying to get it right. And then I'm calling Mike Batlin, and Batlin is making sketches of the room, trying to remember, but it gets down to the level of what kind of pen was used to make the label on the cassette. And
Wow.
a cassette that nobody knows where it is. And sometimes Mike would just be laughing. It would be a great thing if I could remember these kind of things.
Yeah.
Let's just get as close. What kind of pens did you keep? Ballpoint pen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was typically a ballpoint. But it's like, are there Easter eggs? I feel like it's a field of Easter eggs
Got it.
because there's so much exactitude that the run-of-the-mill viewer isn't going to pick up on except as a vibration.
It will feel real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Got it.
but somebody who really knows how Bruce was recording will look at it and say, "Damn,
Yeah.
that's it," because it was it. But to get one to film one TAC 144 working, trust me, there were three.
That's funny. All
It's like
right.
the TAC 144 had two stunt doubles.
I love that. All right. I know we are out of time. Before I let you go, any story that you haven't told? I'm sure there are dozens, but is there a final story you want to share with us? And then, of course, we're all heading to the film. I already have my ticket for Thursday night. I'm sneaking out of work early. I'm going at 5 o'clock on the 23rd. I am so excited. I can't wait. So,
I
any
mean,
final story you want to share?
Bruce has talked about this. He did a friends and family screening, and there were some E Street members there. John Mellencamp was there. But he was sitting with John Mellencamp on one side and his sister Virginia on the other side. And he's described this that two-thirds of the way through, she just took his hand and held his hand. And at the end of it, said something to the effect of, "This is a real gift for our family." And for me, that's the only review that matters. If something can be created that Bruce's sibling, who was in the house at the time, when seeing it, feels like it's a gift to the family to have the story told with that level of truth. Your worry is that it's too hard for them to see it. But if the response is, this hard truth feels like a gift to our family when it's told in this public way, that's just so powerful to me. And that was a moment. And I was sitting with my son Piero, just like 3 rows back. And I didn't know what she's saying to him at the end. I can see her taking his hand. It's the only time I've seen my son Piero cry at a movie.
Wow.
And that's, there's a father-son story that's not a happily ever after, but there's a little bit of healing. And I'm sitting next to my son, who at some point, every time he met someone named John, he thought it might be my father.
Mm.
When he was really little, and he would say, "Is that your father?" Because he knew his name was John. It's the only thing he knew about him. Didn't know what he looked like. And I finally took my sons to meet my father, and it was just one time. And he got our address. We never heard from him. And then he
Mm.
died. And that little bit of healing is not possible for me and my father in the way it is portrayed in the film between Bruce and his father. Just enough healing. But for me to be a part of this story and to be sitting next to my own son, that's where I get my healing. And I just think that there are going to be people who fit my general description, my son's general description, Virginia's general description, who are going to feel a little bit of healing. And hopefully, a lot of them will know that a little bit of healing is a lot of healing. And
Yes.
there's a lot of emotion, and that's the film's power to me. Like I love action. I remember emotion.
Yeah. Gail King, right, on that CBS Sunday Mornings piece, said that she thought that the discussion about depression and all this is going to be powerful. I think the film is going to be brilliant. I'm so happy that you spent some time with me today. Thank
Yeah.
you. And everyone, of course, you're going to go see it opening weekend, but let's make sure this thing's number one. And also, mostly, i- you hate to just judge films by financial when let's hope it sheds a little light in the world.
Yeah. I thank God I don't have anything to do with accounting.
Yeah.
That's what matters to me. Easy for me to say. I didn't
Yeah.
pay for the film.
Yes.
But I think maybe now more than ever, a little bit of that light is a good thing. And there are a lot of families who, you know, deserve that little bit of healing.
Absolutely said. Thank you, Warren. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you for the good work you do out there. And I have a strong feeling this ain't our last conversation.
I certainly hope not. Thank you.